Right.
All right, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We are officially getting started here on the webinar. So thanks everybody for hopping in live. We appreciate that. We wouldn't mind any messages in the comments about kind of where you're calling in from, a little bit about your company. That can help us set the stage a little bit as we get going. But Ellie, thank you. I know we were just chatting for a few minutes to get everything dialed in here to get started today. But maybe some people attending the webinar have not heard of you, have not heard of your company. If you wouldn't mind, Ellie, maybe just a minute or two on your background. Your kind of company a little bit and what you focus on here in the vacation rental industry.
Absolutely. Thank you, Conrad. And thank you again for having me here. And once again, congratulations on the new arrival at your family. That's huge.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the time. Hi, everyone. Those who haven't met me, my name is Ali Pritikin. I'm the founder of Hudson Creative Studio. We've been in the vacation rental business for the past maybe about 3.5 years, laser focused on direct bookings. That's really everything that we do between technology and design and web development. Before this, I spent over 10 years as a creative director at a marketing and PR firm, working across a wide range of industries, learned a ton, won awards, built websites, built brands campaigns, and now I'm really excited to bring it all to the vacation rental space, which is such a fantastic industry.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's been fun to get you know you over the last, I would say, year or two for sure, Ellie, and we've had a lot of mutual clients. So this idea we came together with, I think is a good one because it's going to be more, what's working on the conversion side of things, which at the end of the day, my sort of thesis, we'll talk about this a little bit as we go along here, obviously today, is that the marketing can work well. Sometimes on the marketing side, you can drive a lot of traffic, you can drive a lot of visibility, you can sort of quote unquote get eyeballs on your brand, on your properties. But if people aren't converting, then what are we doing, right? Like we're not going to get to the ideal outcome, which is not a cool looking brand or a cool looking ad, but money in your bank account. That's really what we're after. So the way I'm thinking about this, as we were kind of putting together everything and talking about everything earlier, is that there's kind of like a lot of people use the word funnel. So I'll use the word funnel just as a way to describe it. Although Ellie and I had some different ideas of the way to think about kind of this process when it comes to your vacation rental business and what it looks like. But if traffic goes in the top of your vacation rental, funnel, then what comes out the bottom is money, is bookings, right? That's what we're all after here at the end of the day. We're not most people aren't quote unquote fans of Airbnb because it looks nice. They're fans of Airbnb because it produces a lot of bookings for a lot of our clients that we work with. That's why they're excited about working with Airbnb. Now, does the design help them drive more bookings? I think so. And Ellie has some thoughts on that we're going to talk about here, in the coming hour or so. But I think it's one of these pieces where if you're comfortable in the outcome that you're getting, then that outcome should be measured in terms of how well your website converts. The way your website converts, mostly we measure based on how many bookings are coming in. What's the revenue coming in from that booking? What's the average rent? All these things kind of make a difference. So yeah, at a high level, I think that we always have to come back to this when it's talking about websites, because I think some people in our space will show you, hey, my website integrates with the software. My website looks a certain way, but I think very few people, Ellie, have your eye for conversion, where it's like, hey, this website converts well. People who come to my sites convert at a high percentage. Where did that come from? Like, where did you kind of start in your career on this conversion idea, not just something that looks pretty?
That's a great question. You may get more than you bargained for with this. I think this stems from my upbringing in the former Soviet Union, in the sort of a communism regime, and the communication that we were experiencing with these giant red banners just beaming words at us that are absolute truth. And there was power in there. And then when I left and just suddenly realized I can print a word on a page and it have that same kind of a power on me. I think I wanted to reclaim my power by being able to understand what the communications are, what the visual communications are. So my big draw is to visual communications and to the way that it works on people's brains, for the most part, under the surface, subconscious, creating feelings, thoughts, driving action. And of course, that doesn't have to be negative, doesn't have to be in a communism or a black hat kind of a format. If there's a message such as, our product is fantastic, it's actually a great fit for you, just getting that message to the right customer is, everybody wins. So that kind of is where it all started from.
Yeah. Well, I can't say that I can mimic that experience myself personally, right? When it comes to, my upbringing, I don't think of it that way. I guess, we were talking a little bit about this too before we got started, which is that when I started working in the space, really, this would have been like 2014, 2015, before I started BuildUp, I was working with a different agency, and I just saw what was out there, that our so-called competition was doing. And it wasn't very good. So the story I told previously to someone we were talking about this was you'd go to the checkout page of a vacational website. And again, this is like 2015. It's not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. I guess it's about 10 years now, but it doesn't feel that long ago. And there would be all these unnecessary fields on the checkout page, which that sounds like such a simple insight. And we're going to talk a little bit more about checkout here in a few minutes. But if you go to a checkout page of any website, you want to do as little as possible at that point, right? I don't want to go in and fill out a bunch of unnecessary information. So for example, we had worked with this property manager up in the Outer Banks, and they were asking for people for their fax number. Again, in 2015, not 1995, in 2015, they were asking for their fax number. And like, what are you doing with this information? And they're like, oh, it's just one of the fields in our, system. I think it was a Property Plus at the time. And I was like, okay, well, we don't need that field. Why do we have it on the website? Oh, it just pulls in through the system. Like we don't think about it. They don't have to fill it out. It's just there. It's optional. And I'm like, well, why don't we just eliminate it if we don't need it? And I learned really back then that everything we did that improved the conversion rate a little bit, the more traffic we had, the better things started to go, right? The better performance we started to get when we started working on the marketing side of things. And it kind of became somewhat addicting, I think, to me in a way, right? To think about this conversion, rate optimization or improving the conversions on a website, because it is true that we can only take our marketing so far. So for example, like we could send the best email we've ever sent, this next week for one of our top vacation rental clients, but only X% of people are going to open it. Let's say it's 25%, let's say it's 30%. And maybe if we try our little techniques or tactics, we might be able to get, our conversion rate or open rate on our email, I should say, excuse me, from 30% to 32%. Like maybe we can try better subject lines or better content. That's possible. That's, we've done that before. We've seen, but there's a ceiling, right? The email open rate will only get so high. The budget on Google Ads can only get so high. I can show you that the ads are, targeting the right keywords, we're going after the right stuff. But at the end of the day, a client is only going to have a certain amount of budget, a certain amount that they can spend based on their business goals and their profitability and that sort of thing. So I do think that there are certain marketing activities that you can kind of max out, that you can sort of reach some higher level of activity on. And then you really have to rely on the website to do a lot more work for you and to see a lot better results, because then you realize that you are putting money into a bucket. Or the analogy that Ellie and I had before we started the call today was, I think of it almost like a bridge where each step in the bridge has to be set up correctly. If you had a bridge where 10 steps of the bridge were missing out of the middle, that's not going to be a very effective bridge. I mean, like that's going to struggle to, get you where you're trying to go. But if you have a bridge that's has everything, the right steps all the way through, we're going to talk about all these different steps here in a second, then I think you're going to be successful. So Ellie, I know we talked a little bit about this concept before we started going. We have these few things. I'm going to run through them quickly, and then I'm going to go back, and Ellie's going to kind of screen share on some of these design elements and maybe do like a little live example of some of the things that he's considered on his website. So let me run through these really quickly, and then let's go back and talk about some of these individual pieces. So we're going to have a section today where we talk about essential design elements, or just design elements that Ellie has proven to be successful in some of these websites. And again, he has a few demos of things that he can show. I'm going to talk a little bit more about SEO and content strategies. So what are kind of the pieces of the puzzle that once you have this website up and running that make a website convert better when it comes to getting more traffic, getting more visibility, primarily through SEO and content creation. Then we're going to talk about that booking flow, like we just mentioned a few minutes ago. So there's kind of that for that first visit on the homepage, all the way through them putting their credit card in and clicking book now. What are the different steps of the process, and what does it look like? And then we have maybe a success story or two to share, some analytics and numbers to share about how things are going. So Ellie, I'm going to stop my share on this moment of time. I think you should be able to take over the share, hopefully. So if you can start your share, and we can start a little bit on those essential design elements with some of the sites that you got.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will say that 25-30% conversion rate on emails is really high. So you guys make it sound like that's kind of standard. I think industry standard is maybe like 10, maybe shy of 15. So you guys are definitely killing it with that.
Yeah, I think it depends heavily too on the quality of the list. Like we have some clients that are definitely getting lower open rates, and I think it's kind of like this is a programming concept, right? Garbage in, garbage out, right? If you're putting bad emails on a list or the emails aren't very engaged, then you're obviously going to struggle, to get a good open rate. But if if you have people on the list that are actually engaged that want to, work with, then being able to get a higher open rate is not uncommon. We have much smaller hosts and property managers we've worked with that get 50% open rates, but it's usually because they have a very small list, only of past guests, right? People that have only stayed with them before, and maybe even some situations they remember the host that they're staying with. So it's like an email from Ellie feels like a personal email, that was sent just to me. So there's some other pieces in there we can go through for sure.
The quality of the content, quality of the audience. Yeah, you can scrape the web and have a million email addresses, and then just get a whole bunch of people who are like, "Why are you emailing me?" That's not where you want to be.
Exactly. But yeah, awesome.
Right. So I can share my screen.
Yes, I think so. Yes, sir.
I got one of our mutual customers' website up. Let me see. Pardon me. I think so.
No, all good. All good. Yeah, well, Ellie gets this dialed in. It's always interesting too to work with someone who's trying to, make these improvements I think that we're all after, because when we work together, that's when we get the best outcome. So, this is, I think, a really good example of it that we can talk about at a high level. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Can you guys see my screen okay?
I can see it. Mhm. I'm hoping the chat can. If not, leave a chat if you can't see the screen.
Wonderful.
But I can see it, so I think we're good to go.
So to piggyback, Conrad, on your analogy of a bridge, I think ours was similar. My analogy was that trust. Trust is the name of the game. Trust, end-to-end trust. This is true in business in general. This is true in e-commerce. And as a more sort of a more specific, and then even more specific, e-commerce as direct booking websites are e-commerce, and that's it's helpful to think of that because there's a large body of data and psychology and thought on that. So tapping into that. My analogy for that, that's similar to your bridge analogy, was that we're inflating a balloon that when it's fully inflated, it has a clear shape, and the shape communicates trust. It tells the guest that it is safe to try to book with this business. It's also a choice that the guest will make and then in the future be happy with. This is something that we talked about briefly, is how human brains are ultimately pattern recognizing and predictive machines, much like AI at scale in our own little ways. So we're always trying to think of like whether we're going to be happy with the choice we made. The book that really crystallized it for me was Stumbling Upon Happiness. People think they know what they need to do to be happy, and more than half the time they're just completely off on that. So as we inflate this trust balloon, at every stage of the touch point on the website, we add sort of more air to it. This trust ultimately is there to remove the hesitations, because that's what's going to kill the conversion. People are going to try and figure out whether this is going to be the right choice, and anything that is not an obvious yes is not sure, and that's kind of screeching, hitting those brakes. And of course, that's just people clicking away, doing something else, or just getting distracted, and because they got confused, right? And maybe the trust is not the issue, but they're confused, and that's friction. So here on this website we have Stable Maple. That's one of our shared customers. Some of the things here I will highlight. First, I love the brand. It's clean. The colors speak to it, and I think when we built this website for Stable Maple, I think we did a good job tapping into the brand and sort of creating this sort of a rustic feel that's also clean and professional. There's a little bit of a kind of a textured paper happening in different spots. Of course, all of our websites, and we'll touch on it a few times throughout this webinar, are mobile first. This is not something that we sell as a separate feature. This is not something we develop separately. The frameworks we use are always inherently going to just work on mobile, and it's not a separate thing. Oftentimes we still need to tighten up and modify things to make them work just right, but mobile first is key. I'm not going to demo it here, but all of these elements collapse really sensibly and just easy to scroll on the device of any size. The screen here I have is a pretty big screen, so hopefully it's doing justice. A few things I'll note here. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ellie, one thing I'll add in there too is that, well, a lot of our clients, when we go and review the GA data nowadays, I mean, mobile is not, just a portion of the traffic. It's often the majority of the traffic. And I've said this before on like the podcast that I do with Paul and, a few other times on maybe these webinars in the past, which is that I tend to get a little desktop, screen blind. I'm using my desktop computer or like a laptop computer throughout the day to work with our clients. And I'm looking at, our clients' websites all the time on desktop and laptop computers. And I do sometimes forget that 60-70% of the traffic with a lot of our clients is happening on the phone and not happening on the desktop. So I think we, as people using our own websites, I suspect a lot of our clients are in the same bucket because I've seen them do that before. They look at their website all the time when they're at work and, they're in a laptop or a desktop scenario, and they don't ever really take the time sometimes to like just go through the booking process on your phone. And you'd be shocked what you find of like buttons being out of place and things not quite working the right way from a conversion standpoint, or things are covered up, or you can't actually see the field to like enter in the dates. This is one that I picked out quite a few times. It's in our audit process, which is that when you pick select a date picker on a phone, the keyboard pops up a lot of times because people don't use the right input type. So it's like popping up a keyboard when you're just trying to tap a date, little things like that. Or in the checkout page, when you actually go to type in a credit card number, you can tap that and make sure it only shows digits on the keyboard for a credit card number, not the whole keyboard showing like the words, for example. So little things like that that you don't really see at all in some situations on a desktop computer really reveal themselves on mobile. So I'm with you 100%, Ellie. It's not mobile first. It's almost like or it's not mobile friendly, excuse me. It's more mobile first, right? Like that's the way that people actually use the website more often than they use desktop or laptop computers if our analytics data is to be trusted and believed.
Yeah, and honestly, these days it's non-negotiable. Anybody who is listing mobile, mobile friendly as a bullet point, it's kind of like a rear view reverse cameras on the cars. Since I think 2014, they have become mandatory. You cannot not have it. But listing it as a feature is kind of a misnomer because you cannot not have it. You just have to.
Think of how many cats' lives have been saved by the backup feature on the camera, or how many children's bicycles have been saved by those things. So yeah, shout out to the backup camera on the cars.
100%, 100%. So first and foremost, I think a lot of people heard of the F pattern when somebody is kind of first looking at just about anything. Could be a printed piece of page. Definitely applies to the websites, sort of looking at the logo first and then starting to scan across the navigation, then down into the main sort of a value proposition within the hero section. And the hero section is, I think it's called the hero section because of how important it is. This is the hero of those first 3 seconds that the guest, the customer, spends deciding whether they're in the right place in the first place, whether they should just click away or continue, get intrigued, feel like, okay, this, and feel proud of themselves for finding the right resource, right? Because so much is happening. The attention span is worn down to nothing. So finding something that is the right path is great. So this F pattern, even before we get to the hero section, I will point something out that is often overlooked. The main navigation. The main navigation is not just, this is how somebody can find those specific pages. The main navigation is a narrative. It tells a story. So not only is it important to not overstuff it and create just a bunch of noise out of it where it's nonsensical, but there is a story that can be told as you read through it, properties, destinations, about us, management, contact, and there's a hierarchy to it. A well-tuned navigation will not just not hurt conversions, but it will help establish that brand early on, especially if it's a first touch point, and really can help your audience connect. Then going into the hero section, having images and having, in this case, what we are actually doing here, something cool. We are dynamically pulling specific selection of properties that the client marked on the PMS as featured specifically for the slideshow, and then automatically we show the main large images of those properties as we do the slideshow. Thankfully, these are incredible photos, and they go beyond just showing, what the bedroom looks like. They actually show some fantastic shots. Like this one is eye-catching. They based on experience. Now we're looking outside of the balcony. Look at that view. Holy moly! So selling the experience, not just sort of what the couch looks like. Selling what it might feel like to be in this property, which goes back to that whole predictive engine. What will it feel like if a guest makes a choice to book a property? Speaking to that, and then validating that and reinforcing that. And then, of course, having a well thought out on brand presentation of the main value proposition and explaining really quickly what the company does, what it stands for. And one of the key features that I'm really proud of here for this website is that every slide that comes up, it's a little bit subtle, but the name of the property in this changes. And this is actually hyperlinked right to that property details page, which is key because if somebody gets really captured by oh, wow, this is incredible, we want to give them that next action. It's all about what do you want your website visitor to do? What action do you want them to make? You want them to book their stay. You want them to search for properties. But here, this is the property that they're looking at. You love it. Click on this, go on and book it.
Yeah. And I would say on that hero section too, from my perspective, we'll talk about SEO here in a minute, obviously, but you'd be shocked to often look at websites and that hero text is just something like "stay in our awesome listings" or like "premium vacation homes" or like that's what the actual main heading is on that hero section. And yes, obviously there's an SEO reason why we might want to include a certain keyword there. But even if you're not going to rank for anything from an SEO perspective, let's just pretend that Google doesn't exist for a moment. There's certainly lots of people that think that's going to happen in the coming years with ChatGPT. Wouldn't you at least want to contextualize what you're looking at a little bit? So in this case, premium cabin rentals in West Virginia and Virginia. At least now I understand. Okay, I like have oriented myself quickly into what it is I'm looking at, cabin rentals, and where I'm looking at it at. In this case, West Virginia and Virginia. That sounds simple, but again, you'd be shocked how often someone comes to their website and they get a little banner blindness themselves, I think, too, sometimes, right? When you look at your website all the time, you're like, of course I know I'm in San Diego. Of course I know I'm in Miami, Florida. Of course I know I'm in, New Orleans or whatever the case may be. But
Yeah.
they don't often communicate that very clearly and succinctly right at the top of the page, and it's too far down the bottom. It's taking me too long to get there. Actually, I have a book recommendation I could put in the chat here for people. And I've recommended it. Actually, I'm surprised Ellie hadn't checked out this book before. It surprised me a little bit, but I know he's read similar content before. But it's this one called "Don't Make Me Think." And I have the updated version here. I'll put a link in the chat here in a second, by an author called Steve Krug. I think that's how you say it, Krug or Krug, that sort of thing. And this book is fascinating to me because it talks all about the usability side of websites. And I think that, Ellie's going to talk about it as it relates specifically today to vacation rentals, but everything on a website has a usability component to it. Like the header, having the link to the property in there. That sounds like a small thing, but it's not, because it makes people, contextualize what they're looking at, and that can improve a conversion significantly. So I'm going to put the link in here, and Ellie, you can keep going. But I just wanted to hit on that SEO thing because you'd be shocked how often I see headers like that are just like book our rentals, which is not great.
And this is a great example of where SEO and user experience, which, by the way, we call guest experience, as on vacation rental websites, you don't have users. You have potential guests, past guests, future guests. There's a guest. This is a guest experience that operators care about in the properties. This is that same guest experience extended into the digital foyer of their business. So this is a case where the guest experience and the SEO converge into a single point, where explaining that these rentals are in West Virginia and Virginia is great for SEO, and it's great for the human brain to just understand this is what I'm looking for. Don't make me think, don't make me dig around and see where this. I've been there just recently. I had to go to the footer and see what is the address of the business to see what state they're in, to remember if I am even on the right path to get where I'm going. And Google in general, like, and Conrad, maybe you will add that later. Google has been more and more holistic about, like, if the visitor has a good experience on the website, that is going to contribute to a good ranking on the website. The technical SEO, of course, is important, and it's very actionable. We take care of that. But in general, like, if the opposite of that, if somebody gets to the website and they just like, they get the ick, right, and they click away, that is going to cause Google to punish that website, because Google doesn't want to be showing results that are unsatisfactory. Google wants to say, we solved your problem. And if they see this click away behavior, they're going to punish your website, and all of that hard work just goes down the drain.
Yeah, yeah. I think the specific thing that Google has mentioned before is this idea of pogo sticking. So it's doing a search, returning a website in Google search results, clicking on that result, and then like you described, going back to the search results and then clicking on another one and then staying there. So if I did a click and I was like, this website's no good, I come back and then I click on another one, it's been proven time and time again that click activity will often boost the result that actually has more time on page. Now, Google can't necessarily see if they're spending more or less time on page necessarily from the algorithm side, from the search engine page side. They can in analytics, but they've said that they don't share the analytics data back to the search engine side of things. That's up for you to believe if that's true or not, but that's kind of what they say. Just like there's no correlation between ads and SEO. I think there is indirectly, but not directly. But yeah, these things are obviously just bad from a conversion standpoint, but I've seen it before, a site that actually will tend to get a little bit of rankings early on, and then it'll fall, it won't stick there. And I think sometimes it's because of some of the behavior that you're describing, Ellie, where people go to the website from the search results, they don't like what they see, they bounce back and they find a different result that's more appropriate.
Yeah, that's like a little death, for any website to have Google notice that. Moving on from the hero section, worth maybe stopping at the search bar. That's the hero of the website in a large way. That's how the guest will be discovering the properties. So here, for example, there are some things that we're proud of, in the way we build our websites. Beyond just what typically PMSs offer, location-based search that is tied to a city. more and more often, we're working with the customers who are operating in a region where just a list of cities is not telling the whole story. Maybe these townships are really small, or maybe another way, they're all operating within the same city. So the drop down just makes no sense and should just go away. Instead, what we're able to do, if I can, to the home runner, which is our booking engine Horn, is we are able to set up location-based collections, basically setting up regions, in this case, destinations. So here we group properties into these 7 regions, and those are known by travelers as such. But beyond that, we still list the full list of cities. So being able to, and you're able to search and kind of quickly get to, if the list is longer, you don't have to scroll through it. You can kind of start typing. Dates, these things are typical. And kind of to your point about don't make me think. I think looping back to that, it takes calories to think. It's not free. It takes effort. It wears people out. A human brain consumes, something like 20% or more of all of the calories that the body makes available. So it's the effort, and you want to make it as easy as possible. You don't want your website to come with an instruction manual on how to use it, which is why, for example, Apple devices, as complex as they can be, come with like a 1-pager, 2-pager, because guess what? You already know. They tell they release a new product, and they send it to their customers, and the customers already know how to use it because the UI UX of it is just sensical. And in our case, and often it makes sense to take inspiration from websites like Airbnb, which is ubiquitous with just in general, renting a property. So the audience is already trained on the UI UX of Airbnb. Tapping into that, don't make them think, make it obvious. So showing a calendar that's clear, etc. Search. And just moving on, all the filters, this filter interface is definitely heavily influenced by what we saw on Airbnb. And the goal here was, again, to just make it as seamless as possible. Now, I was talking about trust. Trust really, I don't think much of anything that we will talk about on my end is not going to belong in this trust bucket. Then social proof is huge. Social proof. In this case here, we're opening up with over 60,000 guests stayed here. That's validation. That's just human psychology. People want to go where other people have been. They don't want to necessarily trailblaze and be, first explorers. They want to say like, okay, others have vetted it. Obviously, they've come back. So I'm in good hands. And the choice I make is going to be a choice I'll be happy with later on, right? Then moving through. I think kind of we talked about kind of guiding the experience, right? Especially if the inventory is large enough. I would say, even like larger than 15, 20 properties. It seems kind of on the lower end, but not necessarily. Just saying like, here are our properties. Scroll through the list like it's a store inventory, like it's a catalog. That does not serve. The guests are coming for an experience. They're not coming there to watch TV. They're not coming there to just sleep it off, so to speak. They are coming there to have a family reunion, to have that outing, to go hiking, etc. So right away, knowing your guests, which is important, just understanding who your guest personas are, and those could be multiple, and then speaking to them in their language, making it really accessible. So here, indoor outdoor games, fire pits. I can already imagine families kind of looking at it and picturing themselves doing these things. And each of these things, each of these tiles here is hyperlinked to a landing page that shows properties pre-selected for that specific amenity or feature, which is, of course, a fantastic opportunity for SEO and the long-tail keywords, just incredibly rich in opportunity. And then going further down, because this was a bit abbreviated with the line icons, now we're showing images of people having those experiences, stunning views, romantic getaways. And this is something that we early on knew was important, to be able to segment properties into collections that go outside of maybe what could be discerned by an amenity. For example, romantic getaways. That's not an amenity, whether a property is romantic or not. Family friendly could be. But beyond that, what we do is we have a system where just by adding tags within your PMS account for specific properties, you the operator, you the customer, have full control over organizing and designating the properties into those collections. Of course, properties could be in multiple collections. So having that control, and then the website Home Runner, our booking engine, just knows, listens, organizes, and prepares, and makes it really easy to stand up all of those landing pages based on collections or amenities. I think this is an important and a key thing here. We're accessible. Have a question, we're always available. And it's absolutely true that, this client has a fantastic team that he responds really fast, and they're really professional. And just putting the phone number there, knowing you can text us, and these links, this one will initiate a phone call if you're on the mobile. This one will open up an SMS with a text message with that phone number, and you can just start the conversation knowing that it's accessible. You don't have to dig around for it. Says that maybe knowing that I can do this makes me feel like I maybe won't have to, because you guys obviously have thought of everything. So it's only like for an emergency. Destination guides. This one is huge in general, as I've talked about before. There is an evolution of a vacation rental operator. Maybe they start on Airbnb as a co-host, right, and then they're host and a super host on Airbnb. Of course, that's an OTA. That's a third-party platform. That's not really their website, not really their platform. Now they build the direct booking website, and now they are a vacation rental brand, brand means that it feels like something to interact with this brand. There's an anticipation, there's an expectation. Now there's a brand, as opposed to on Airbnb, it's just another property in the tile of in a large grid of properties. But the next step of this evolution is going from the vacation rental brand to a destination brand. Because once again, guests are not coming there to watch TV. Guests are coming to experience the destination. So being that hyper-local authority on the destination and showing recommendations around the area, and extra bonus points if those are not just copy and paste out of our Yellow Pages, but are actually recommendations that you would give your friend who's coming to the area, off the beaten path, not a tourist trap. If you go to this diner, ask for this special that is not on the menu. Sort of giving them these insider tips that really make them feel like they're taken care of, they're included. And building out destination guides is something that we have started doing early on. And we have an integration with Hostful Guidebooks, a fantastic product in itself. But beyond that, we have the ability to use the recommendation data out of Hostful Guidebooks, and through API automatically bring it into the website and show that data in a way that really makes it easy. Again, guest user experience. And if I go to one of those, I'm proud of the way this one is set up. So here's one of the destinations. And this page is kind of a conglomerate of all of the data that belongs with the destination. We talk about, really briefly about the destination itself. We show a blog posts that are tagged for the destination. Then we have a hidden but available map of all the recommendations we're about to show, so they can be clicked and browsed around. Then untoggled, we have the recommendations in the area that are tagged specifically for this area, not just account-wide, all separated by category, searchable, so somebody can search for, I guess. I always assume there's a pizza shop, maybe not true. There's a park.
Sure, so certainly there's a restaurant of some kind, maybe not a pizza place, yeah.
Well, not a pizza shop in this case, but here we kind of zoom in there. But then immediately we contextualize, and of course, the end goal here is to get the guest to book, right? So we show the properties right away, and these properties are the properties within this destination. Obviously, immediately linked to it. And this is all happening dynamically based on the tag system that we set up. So it doesn't have to be, this page is not built manually. This page is built fully out of dynamic content, so that when everything is correctly organized, it will just show up in the right spot.
And just add one more thing in here, Ellie, while you're doing more examples here, because people often ask me too, like, is all content that you create blog posts? And the answer is no. And this is a good example of like the type of content that you might want to create on your website that's not a blog post. Now, this particular website does have blog posts, and they do produce content in that way as well. And that's another format to distribute, information out there that often ranks well. But this is a good example in my mind of if you're covering more of a region or a whole area, you probably want to have this type of content here. And the interesting thing I think about some of this stuff too is that to your point, many people coming on this page aren't ready to book right now. That's why the listings are there, but they're more subtle, they're more off to the side. But we're giving them that information. And in my mind, this is what I've seen over and over again over the past few years too. You have to become, in Google's mind, a bit of an expert in that destination. There must be some evidence that you're actually knowledgeable about that destination before you can rank for the keywords you want to rank for. So, for example, many small vacation rental managers think, well, why would I write an article on things to do in Berkeley Springs or things to do in San Diego or something when my main goal is to rank for San Diego vacation rentals? And what I've learned over the years is that one happens before the other. Like you have to create the informational pages, the informational content first, and then Google kind of rewards you with the more commercial intent keywords after that, in my experience. It also makes things like link building and content creation easier when I have like a blog or pages like this to work off of. But I just wanted to hit on that point because I think someone may look at this and go, okay, that's fine, but how does that relate back to the booking side of things? And that's how it relates back, is that you can't rank for those booking terms in Google, generally speaking, unless you've built structure out on the website like this and blog pages, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, that actually provide useful information to the user and to Google as well.
100%. So having this content is key. And I will take this quick opportunity, Conrad, since this is our shared customer. We have the opportunity to show more content on the details page for the recommendation. In Hostfully, there is a long description for each of the recommendations. It's typically not used, and I always have to wring arms for our clients to fill it out. Sometimes they do. Those that do, though, I think are killing it. And taking that and actually massaging it and making it contextual to the business. But rather than just show this one-liner, there's an opportunity to show one or two paragraphs, and that I will circle back after the webinar and see if there's a way we can get it going. Then, of course, we're showing the properties right there alongside of this recommendation because we want to be able to loop them right back in. Social proof, I think at the footer of this website, we're always showing a selection of reviews. These reviews sync out of the PMS. I will take this quick moment to do a shout out to Riva, which is our recent integration partner. We now have an API integration with Riva, and they do some wonderful things around a review, sentiment analysis, AI-based list, task creations, and more. I'm not as versed in it, but so as they aggregate reviews, we're able to tap into that body of reviews, which usually is larger than what we get right out of the PMS, and therefore just have more reviews on the website. The way we bring reviews, and this is key, is that when we show a review, just as I showed that hero section with good images, we want to make it actionable. If somebody reads a great experience from a guest, we want to give them that next step to, here's the property, click here and book the property. So you want to have that experience. Here's your one-click step to begin the journey towards that experience. That's key. And this is what we do with reviews, unless they are on the property details page and then they're already contextualized.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
Let's see.
If you want, Ellie, too, I could go more down the SEO side if you want to flip this over and we could do the screen share on this side, or if there's any other main last points you wanted to hit on. Yeah.
I'll take all the time you give me. So by all means.
No, it's all good. I think awesome. Let me flip back over here to my side, and we can certainly dial a few more things back in before we get there. Let me get this back dialed in here. If anyone has any questions too, feel free to pop them in the chat. We can certainly go through those and talk about some of those pieces as well. So I think, Ellie, you nailed these, right? We talked about mobile first design. We talked about navigation. We talked about that homepage search, the search results, call to action, and trust signals. I think you nailed all those. Maybe the thing we didn't get to is search results. We can come back to that in a minute when we talk about kind of the conversion booking flow side of things. So let me just do a few minutes here. And I kind of interjected a few times there on kind of the SEO and content strategies. I guess the way I'm thinking about this, right, is that what Ellie showed you was a very high performing website, but it's, Ellie doesn't deserve all the credit. The traffic doesn't deserve all the credit. It's really, you need both, right? We need, just like the bridge analogy from earlier, we need each step to go from one to the next in order for it to be successful. And I think these are some things that I just see over and over again as it relates to website conversion that I thought we could spend a few minutes, talking about on the traffic and the conversion side of things. So the first kind of point I had here is talking a little bit about page speed. So page speed has become almost one of these like strangely, almost like tribalistic type of, I feel like data points that people talk about. There's, people that I've encountered in my career, some of them working at large vacation rental companies who are adamant that page speed is like the only thing that Google looks at, or if your pages are a little bit slow, you're going to tank in the rankings in Google. I can't really point to much evidence indicating that that actually is the case. I do think a slow website is bad from a user experience standpoint. I think a slow website is bad from a conversion rate standpoint. But I do think that you can drive yourself a little crazy if you spend too much time thinking about page speed. And I think you have to get into this is a Dan Kennedy thing. He calls it the GE zone, which is the good enough zone. That's kind of my belief with page speed. Everything that Ellie showed a few minutes ago with respect to dynamic content and images and the design and all these reviews pulling in is great. But let's be honest, the more we add on the page, the slower generally it can be if we're adding in and pulling in lots of dynamic content. So we got to figure out the reasonable trade-off, right? If you want to see a really fast website, go to, google.com and you'll see a website that loads very quickly, right? Because there's nothing on that page. But as soon as you go to even like an Airbnb, property detail page, one of the largest, highest performant, web applications on the internet today, at least in our space, they're going to have, a page that's going to load in 3, 4, 5 seconds. So it's like it's reasonable to assume that you can also get your pages loading in 3, 4, 5 seconds or less and be in good shape. But it's something to take a look at and not just ignore. If you're having website issues, you feel like your website's slow, then it's probably worth reviewing and auditing that. If there's things that you can do to improve it, obviously do so. Ellie and I think are both WordPress fans. We both have used WordPress to build vacation rental websites, in the recent past, and it's great. The problem with WordPress is, it obviously we're often running a lot of other people's code that maybe we didn't look at or our developers didn't look at every single line of it, and weird things can happen, right? WordPress core can update, individual plugins can update, other resources can come into play that you didn't maybe exactly control or have under your thumb. And that can create some issues. So I think it's something where you want to keep an eye on page speed and look at it with regularity. But I also don't think it's something where you should spend months and months and months working only on page speed. I think you get page speed to a good spot, and then I think you move on to things that are honestly more important from a marketing standpoint, other than trying to make a page go from 3.5 seconds to 3.25 seconds. I've just never found that to be like a really solid improvement in, rankings or SEO or conversion. I think once it's good, and you can move on to the next things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think lived experience
Yeah.
is really key here. Like, what does it feel like to load a page? It might have a high number, it might have a really good speed number for whatever reason, but then the lived experience is not. It's possible, and then that all goes to waste. It's just what does it feel like? You don't want to sit there twiddling your thumbs while the page loads, because of course people will drop off like flies. So having that is the most important thing.
Exactly. And the more and more I think advanced web techniques we have to like cache data, pull data back quicker, the better in theory we're going to make the performance of all the websites that we work on collectively. So that's kind of what we're after. And I think there's a lot to be said for, how to figure out ways to improve that. We touched on it earlier, but you'd be surprised again how often the basics are missed on some websites with regards to like headings, metadata, things like that. Ellie and I have worked together now closely on probably a half dozen website launches. And, we have to work closely together, as a team for him to get all the right structure in place on the page itself, me to actually go in or someone on my team to go in and actually complete all this heading and metadata information. So in my mind, it's looking at the top of each page and determining what is the heading that Google's actually reading, what's the information on that page, and then what is actually shown in the search results. So to put it very simply, it's like when I do a Google search for, West Virginia cabinet rentals, I want to make sure that my heading is very clear, showing that, that particular keyword. I want to make sure the information I'm showing to Google, in the actual metadata of the page is there. And then I want the user to see that as well. I want that message match to be consistent all the way through from the keyword I search into the result I see on Google. And then of course, finally the page when I get there matches what I'm looking for. And again, it sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how often people make a mistake here or they use different terminology. I was actually just on a call before this one, funny enough, we were talking with a property manager and they use different terms from their homepage to their search results page to some of their individual property detail pages. They're swapping between like condos and villas and vacation rentals. And it's like, okay, I kind of get it because these are all kind of like somewhat similar terms to describe their inventory. But I'm like, you're confusing me. And I'm like, I've known this company for a year. I've worked with them for a year running their Google ads. I can't imagine a guest is going to, understand that process. So if it makes sense to you as a user, it probably makes sense to Google, but you might want to take a look at these things from like a, just the basics standpoint on headings, metadata, stuff like that, and make sure that you're doing everything you need to do so that Google understands the page and the user is clear on where they are and what they're clicking on when they actually go to that landing page. It's common there. Content blog, we talked about that obviously a moment ago with Ellie's demo or example of like kind of those informational pages. I would say though, for the most part, the clients we work with, 90% of their success in, ranking content comes down to a blog. And it's consistently doing that blog and making that content is the word I use is comprehensive. So it doesn't mean that it has a certain word count. It doesn't have to be X number of words or Y number of words. It doesn't have to be a certain number of headings, that sort of thing. But it has to be comprehensive content. So for some things, that might actually be a short article. I gave an example the other day with a client where if you're writing a blog post on a website and it's, how to get to this hiking trail, that may be a relatively short blog post. Here's where it's located. Here's how to get there. Here's the address. Here's a pin on Google Maps. You can kind of cover that information probably in 400 or 500 words if that was the goal of your blog post there. But a article or a blog post on the 25 best restaurants in Miami, Florida could potentially be a 3,000 word blog post because you might want to cover a lot of information about the restaurant, where it's located, the website, the hours of that restaurant, a link to the Google Maps listing or reviews of that website. So that could potentially be a lot more complicated. But both are comprehensive. One could be comprehensive at 400 words and one could be comprehensive at 4,000 words, and they're both doing the job. We use a tool called ClearScope. I can put a link in the chat or a link in the notes to ClearScope, but it's clearscope.io is the tool that we use to evaluate how comprehensive a piece of content, most commonly a blog post, actually is. So if you're making this website and you're investing, this time, effort, energy, and money into making an awesome website, I think that's one thing that sometimes I see people skimp on is they take the website and then they fill it up with a bunch of, ChatGPT, simplified articles, and they publish a lot of stuff just to have stuff on the website, but it's not any good. There's no images, there's no contextual information there. There's none of that local recommendation stuff you talked about a few minutes ago. Hey, go to this restaurant, ask for this thing. That's the best thing. And that's, I think, where you want to go is in that direction. You don't want to make something just to make it. I think you want to make something that actually is valuable, that people actually, want to read. And that's the thing that Google will typically use and have in their, in their algorithm as what people actually want to enjoy and consume from a content perspective. Detailed landing pages, we can probably come back to this one in just a moment because I think we have some examples that we could run through here in a second. But basically, it's the collections example that Ellie went through a few minutes ago, right? I think you want to research those heavily from an SEO perspective. It's always surprising to me sometimes how many new keywords I find when I'm looking at a new destination and I'm looking for these kind of long tail concepts or these, collection concepts that I may not know, but maybe the client does know. So for example, we have a client in a destination where there's a lighthouse and people are looking for vacation rentals near that lighthouse. It's like a notable landmark in this particular destination. Or the example I often use, although we don't have a client here anymore, is if you were to go to Paris, what's the most iconic landmark in Paris? The Eiffel Tower. So if someone may search for a rental near the Eiffel Tower, you might have something similar in your destination. Maybe not the Eiffel Tower, but you might have some a pier. You might have some area of town that people might describe it as. Hey, I'm looking for rentals on the south end. I'm looking for rentals that are in the north side. I'm looking for rentals that are in beachfront, that are Gulffront, that are oceanfront. These are all terms that people often use. Those are often some of the best converting terms you have from an SEO perspective, potentially, because when people are looking for very specific terms, that's what their intent is. They want to find a pet-friendly cabin in Blue Ridge, Georgia, with a fenced-in yard, or they want to find a large family-friendly vacation rental in Myrtle Beach. And when you kind of find those keywords that people are looking for, make a page and then match the intent on that page with the inventory that you have. That's when you can have a lot of success. So in my mind, these are very correlated and put together, which is that you want to have a detailed landing page that shows the exact, structure of the keyword that people are going after, of course. And then you want to match what I say intent, like search intent. Here's what I'm looking for with hopefully your inventory. Oh, I have 5 pet-friendly oceanfront vacation rentals. Perfect. Put them on a page. And that's something that's going to rank well, typically speaking, in Google once you do kind of use all the best SEO practices, and that page is going to often be, a catalyst for you to have a lot of success with your website as well. Keywords like that, too, are often much less competitive than keywords that are more general, right? So like if you had to put a gun to my head and I had to rank a website in 1 year, I'm going to have more success trying to rank a website for, beachfront vacation rentals, pet friendly in Myrtle Beach versus ranking a website for Myrtle Beach vacation rentals, which is obviously a very competitive term and may take a little bit more time and a little bit more effort and energy to actually rank on that page. The big guys are often not focused on those long tail pages, right? Airbnb doesn't have a page that's pet friendly plus beachfront on their website, right? Airbnb has a few landing pages for market, but they don't have many. So they're I don't want to say it's laziness. It's really the fact that they're so scaled they can't make every single page type out there. It's just not feasible for them to do so. Is your opportunity to say, great, I have that inventory. I can market it to people. I can use tools like Ahrefs or I can use tools like SEMrush to see what keywords people are looking for. I can take the website I have, build more pages on those high intent keywords. I can match my intent with my inventory, and you could see a ton of success in that manner. And then my last kind of note here, maybe is more of like a conceptual idea, as Ellie and I have kind of done a few of those today, is to paint on the canvas, right? So it's like Ellie might give you a beautiful canvas, but it's up to you to paint on it, meaning you have to go and create content and put it on that website. You have to go run ads and, get those ads clicking over to the website and seeing how they convert. You've got to get your email list up and rolling, to where you can see success. I think it's unfortunately, you and I have had a few mutual clients over the years, Ellie, who buy your website and then they think, oh, I'm done, and they kind of wipe their hands of it. And you and I both know that although we kind of both maybe wish that were the case, you could just buy a nice website and click publish. The reality is that marketing is an ongoing activity. It's a core part of the functionality of your vacation rental business. In the same way that cleaning is a key part of what you're doing day to day, week to week, month to month, you are doing marketing as well. So having a website that converts is certainly a huge advantage, but by no means does it preclude you from being able to not invest any time, effort, energy into marketing. For my part,
no, that's the website is just the beginning and the end, the beginning of the whole journey. It's key because all the marketing efforts will ultimately be leading back to the website, where all those first impressions and high conversion will take place. But in the vacuum, it's crickets. That you need a marketing strategy, and beyond that, it's not just SEO. SEO is not, I'm speaking to the audience here. It's not like a button that you press. It requires strategy. It requires, it's part science, part art. You got to do research. I've heard statements like, "I just want to rank on the first page of Google," without even mentioning what to rank
what
for.
term?
The whole process of finding what keywords to target. That in itself is like a dance. There's a balance between domain authority and how competitive the keywords are. So that's an ongoing process of reporting, adjusting, and anytime you adjust, those keywords need to propagate in the website. So it's which is why Hudson Creative Studio focuses on building websites and lets professionals like Conrad handle marketing and SEO.
No, we have a good relationship. It's awesome. Ellie, really appreciate working with you. Well, let's see. We've got 7-ish minutes left. I'm thinking, Ellie, maybe we spend 5 minutes on this booking flow. We could talk a little bit about some of these concepts if we didn't touch on them before, and then we'll wrap and we'll see if there's any final questions. Also, real quick, I have some bonuses. So we're going to get to this in a second, but I have some bonuses. I have a checklist that folks can get if they haven't got it before on a previous webinar about how to audit your website, how to actually review it from a conversion standpoint. So if you haven't got that before, stick around. I got something at the end on that. And then also some folks sometimes like to get a copy of my book. Last year I wrote a book called Mastering Vacational Marketing. Again, if you want a copy of that, I'll come back to this QR code in a minute. Don't worry, that will come back. But I did just want to spend a few minutes on this before we come up against it time-wise. So yeah, Ellie, what did we not cover on this booking flow that maybe you should dive into? I feel like you did a really good job on homepage. We talked a little bit conceptually about search results. I feel like we didn't talk much about property detail or the checkout process. What else can we dive into here?
Would it be all right if I share my screen again?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kick it back your way. Absolutely.
See, and go.
Perfect. Got it.
Now the customer hours, some of the similar elements here. I will note, for example, as we are, in the winter and people are going skiing, and this customers upstate New York in the sort of Hudson Valley, being able to quickly browse by mountain is huge. It's a fantastic way to just contextualize. That's a great way to just get in the shoes of your guests and look, why are you here? What is it you're looking to do? You're looking to go skiing at a specific mountain. Don't make them look at the map and figure out which properties are where. Not only that, so we're able to show these landing pages by a specific mountain, but we also have a visual label that indicates the driving distance to the mountain. This took a little bit of legwork to get the tags in place, but if you're just looking through the entire portfolio, you can immediately see which properties are driving distance to the mountain and just make that evaluation. So I think that's fantastic. Showing pricing is big. How do you show pricing? That's how you build trust. That's how you set up expectations, and having some logic around it, so that what variable do you use to show the price before the dates are searched, and then onto the property details page. Of course, this one is kind of where the decision is made, because that's where the booking widget is. That's where that flow starts. The check-in, check-out, etc. So right from the get-go, of course, trust. Trust, all caps, right? So we show what is the rating for the property, average rating. One thing I'm really proud of on this website, we blatantly took it right out of the Amazon's playbook, is rather than just rely on the customer to read all of the reviews that are available for this property, which there are many, we generate an AI-based summary of those reviews and mention the call-out features that those reviews mentioned. People these days, they may not trust AI to drive their car. Maybe they do, but they trust AI to summarize data. Just throwing some text at it and asking it to summarize, that is ubiquitously okay. So this immediately takes that content that is generated by guests and is a lot more trustworthy than any marketing copy you can write, and then puts it right there, kind of succinctly explains what is this property about, what are the key things that you should care about. Other things on the page, of course, they just make sense. We also have additional availability request options. Here we run a loyalty program that allows people who upgrade to a membership status have additional features. So extended availability is available to members. This is something that I think maybe we're out of time to discuss. And then just having a checkout flow, showing pricing in a way that is clear. This is before taxes, shown specifically to match Airbnb booking widget that shows the total right up on top, just based on accommodation fee, and at the bottom without taxes. They don't show you with taxes until the next screen. Here we show the with taxes in a pop-up, but again, if somebody's just doing this match side to side, which a savvy customer would do, they would open Airbnb and the website to make sure they're getting the best price. So communicating that in a way is very important. Here I will just move on, and the checkout flow, of course, cancellation policy is super important. You want to be upfront about that. You don't want it to be confusing. When you show that information upfront, you reduce unhappy guests, you reduce, you improve conversion rates, you improve trust, and that's everything. But of course, some key things that have to happen, agreement to a rental, acknowledging rental agreement, accepting rules, all these things, cover the basis and create a happy experience for everyone.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I know we went through that quickly. I would say, honestly, for the listener on the other side of the webinar, Ellie, they'd be best served to go to these websites and see what you've done, and they can learn a lot from that, I suspect, for sure. So, also, I'm gonna go to this last bit here. I know we're coming up against the time wise, and we want to be respectful of everyone who was able to hop on here today. Apparently, I don't know how to click slideshow. My excuse is I'm operating off very little sleep here. So, anyways, I got some bonuses. Ellie, I don't know if you had anything else that we could send over to folks. Certainly, people may hear from you as well when they hop off the webinar. Just to touch base and see if you could potentially assist them. So if we didn't have the chance maybe to connect before, you're a first-time webinar listener, I'd love to give you a copy of my book. If you're in the US, I can ship you a physical copy. Scan this QR code, fill out the form. I'll send you a physical copy of my book. You'll need to give me your address, obviously, so I can mail it out. If you're international or you just prefer the PDF or digital copy, I can send that as well. In the book, we talk not just about some of the website and conversion things that Ellie and I have talked about today, but a bunch of other stuff, SEO, paid search, email marketing, social media marketing, we talk about a lot. If you need help with any of those things too, we'll certainly reach out after the webinar. We can touch base with you and see if we could potentially assist you in any way here on the BuildUp side of things. If you're looking for a website and you are using one of the PMSs that Ellie supports, he is the guy to reach out to. Definitely reach out to him. Again, we'll have his contact info and a follow-up email that you can check out there. So yeah, Ellie, thank you. This was a fun one. I don't know if we covered absolutely everything, but it's hard to cover everything that you've worked on for years in a matter of an hour. But I think this was a fun time today.
If I can take maybe 20 seconds, I didn't prepare a giveaway, but maybe what I want to just briefly mention, we are just starting to announce that our booking engine, which we call Home Runner, is now becoming available to our customers independent of our website building services, something we've been asked for over and over. We're finally delivering it, so anybody with a WordPress website or with ability to build a WordPress website do not have to use our web services, though they're still available. The booking engine itself will be available in the next 3 to 4 weeks for customers to just grab and install on their WordPress website, have integration with Hostfully, Guest Pro, Hostaway, Hospitable, Logify, and Honores, with more on the way.
Yeah, and more to come potentially between Ellie and I on that. So stay tuned if you're looking for maybe a way for us to collaborate together. There could be some win-win there. Well, Ellie, thank you. Like I said, this was fun. We had a good time. It was the first webinar back in 2025, so that was an awesome opportunity for us to start on the website side of things. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself. We can reach out to Ellie directly on his website, Hudson Creative Studio. Again, we'll fire you an email after the webinar here, and you can check the stuff out, and you can learn more about everything that we have to offer. But yeah, if you made it all the way to the end, we super duper appreciate that. Thank you for your time and attention. We hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll certainly catch folks here on another webinar down the road. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for having me. Bye all.